Good morning and welcome to today's meeting of the Governance and Audit Committee. Following full council AGM on the 14th of May, the first item on today's agenda is the election of chair. We've received nominations for Lynn Hamilton to be re-elected as chair for the ensuing year. Are there any other nominations from the committee? No, I'll take that as a no, thank you. Lynn, can I just check that you're happy to accept the nomination?
Thank you very much, Carrie Ann. I'm happy to accept the nomination.
Thank you. Could I please have a proposer, seconder and show of hands from committee?
Propose, Carrie Ann.
Okay, I'll take John as proposed and Councillor Graham as seconding. And then could I have show of hands, please? 2, 3. Perfect. Thank you very much. Lynn Hamilton is now chair of the committee for the ensuing year. I'll hand over to Lynn.
Thank you very much, Carrie Ann, and thank you very much, colleagues, for your vote of confidence in me as chair and for returning me to the chair of Powys County Council Governance and Audit Committee. It's a privilege to support the council in this role. Bore da, everyone. We will continue with the meeting and move to agenda item 2, which is election of a vice chair. Please, colleagues, can I have any nominations for vice chair of the Governance and Audit Committee?
Could I nominate Gareth Hall, please?
Thank you, John. Are there any further nominations for vice chair, please? If not, I'm not seeing any hands. Please could I have a proposer and a seconder? Councillor Pete and Councillor Graham. And then a show of hands, please. Thank you very much, Gareth. Thank you very much for agreeing. Oh, Gareth, I didn't actually ask you if you were agreeing to serve.
Oh yeah, very much so.
I'm so sorry. Carrie Ann, your protocol and politeness is far superior to mine. Thank you, Gareth, for agreeing to serve, and thank you for the nomination and for the proposing and seconding and for the committee's vote of confidence in Gareth as vice chair. Before we move on to item 3, Gareth's appointment as vice chair obviously notes the retirement of John Brottingham from the role of vice chair for several years, predating my chairmanship. And in stepping back, I would just like to record my thanks to John for his support to the committee over many, many years and for his personal support to me since I joined Powys County Council Governance and Audit Committee. It's a privilege to work alongside John, and he's an incredibly knowledgeable and supportive colleague. And so I would just like for that to go on the record, please, as John steps back from vice chairmanship. And I would also like to thank John for remaining for now as a member, because it really does help to have that continuity of knowledge and support. So thank you very much, John, for your support and your service to the council.
Thank you for those very kind words, Lynn, and it's been a privilege to work with you.
Thank you. Thanks very much, everyone. We'll move on to agenda item 3, and that's apologies. And I'm just going to pass on to Carrie Ann to briefly bring us up to speed with apologies. Carrie Ann.
We've received apologies from committee member county councillors William Powell and Chris Walsh, from officers Jane Thomas, Diane Reynolds, Mary James, Dr. Richard Jones, and Emma Palmer, CEO, will be late to the meeting today. And we've also received apologies from Audit Wales officer Emma Woodcock.
Thank you very much, Carrie Ann. Thank you. Thanks. Agenda item 4. Are there any disclosures of interest by members of the committee relating to items to be considered at today's meeting? I'm not seeing any hands, so we will record that as no and move to the minutes of our meeting on the 6th of March. And I will take any points of correction, clarification, or matters arising. I am also noting as we go through the minute that there are action points on page 6, 7, 12, 13, 14, and 17. So as we move through, I'm just going to pause on those action points and invite officers, please, to update us on any of the action points. But before we go through the action points, are there any other points on the minutes that colleagues would like to raise, please? No, right, okay. So there's an action point. It's an action point on page 6 in connection with Audit Wales report and internal control weaknesses. Can someone take that, please?
Hello, Chair. I'm David Burridge. I'm standing in for Emma today. I'm the audit lead for the accounts audit.
Could you say your name again, because
Sorry.
you're coming up as Emma?
Yeah, sorry, it's David Burridge.
Oh, David, you're very
Yeah.
welcome.
Thank you. Yes, so we were asked were there any non-significant or non-material control weaknesses. There were two we actually raised. One of them relates to the coding structure within the ledger for putting the accounts together. We observed that there's quite a lot of work involved because the coding structure is quite difficult to use to produce a set of accounts. Given that the authority is introducing a new system, a new ledger, which will be for the 26-27 accounts, then we made a recommendation that they should consider sort of looking at that and improving the way they actually set the coding up, which will make it easier and reduce the risk of errors and make less reliance on one individual, with all the knowledge how to set accounts together. The second issue was around the IT controls around a number of different systems that are used as part of the ledger, as part of the figures that go into the ledger. So the system administrators of various systems, they've got a lot of access. Obviously, there was currently no system in place to monitor the actions of system administrators. So we sort of recommended that was looked into. So yeah, those are just the two issues you raised.
Right, okay. And then there's something on page 7 in connection with the pension fund discussion, the pension board discussion.
Yes, it was about the governance arrangements of the pension
Yeah.
vehicle.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's not within our remit to review the governance issue. That was, I think,
Yeah.
was the conclusion. But any change in the governance, we would have to consider, and that might affect our testing strategy.
Yeah, thank you, David. Thanks very much. And then there are a couple of action points.
Lynn,
sorry, John.
Can I interject at that point? Thank you for that clarification. But if Audit Wales aren't doing it, who is? Does anybody know?
Can someone clarify that? So it's really, John, the point you made last time, and you're seeking further clarification. It's really the efficacy and robustness of the changes to the governance arrangements for the pension fund.
Purely the governance. I'm not talking about the change itself. But yes, it's a new vehicle, and I'm just wondering where the governance scrutiny is going to come from.
Thank you. I can see Councillor David's hand up. Councillor David, if you would.
I don't know if I can help on this one, but the functioning of the pension fund has been delegated by the council to the Pension and Investment Committee, and obviously they take advice from WPP, etc., and they've got their own risk register and identify their own risks and manage their risks there. That's overseen by WPP.
Thank you, David. I
can see Councillor Pete.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, sorry, it was just a question. I wasn't quite sure where to raise it, but this may give me a chance. So just apologies. Seeing there where in the actions there it talks about assessing financial risk. I was just reading something yesterday about some concerns and allegations around Butte Energy and their finances. And I believe the Welsh Pension Partnership had invested about £68 million in Butte's offshore wind portfolio.
Mhm.
So I don't know whether or not that's going to form part of the auditor's work there, whether either we as a committee should need to add a piece of work to our forward work programme around governance, finance and management of capital, or whether that's something the pension fund will be picking up.
Thanks, Councillor Pete. I think what we'll do with that, Councillor Pete, and carry on, is we'll make a note of that and ask for a piece of advice from, probably in the first instance, the Section 151 officer as to how that matter will be reviewed and governed. My instinct is it's for the pension committee, but we'll ask Jane for just for a very short note, just to advise us how that point will be pursued if indeed that you know, if there's an issue or a matter of concern.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, it was around the risk of it.
We'll ask Jane Thomas just for a very short note on that, just to satisfy ourselves that it will be dealt with accordingly. Mary.
I was just going to say I'm happy to take that back to
Right,
Jane. She's on leave this week,
yes,
but I'll pick it up with her next week when she's.
No, that's helpful. That's helpful, Mary. Very helpful.
Thanks, Mary. Yeah.
The next action point on page 12, Councillor Pete, is something that I know you've previously raised. It's the picks up in the discussion at our March meeting on the pupil referral units.
Yes.
And so if you just like to remind us, please, of the issues of concern that still needs clarification.
Yeah, well, it was that the outstanding issue is whether the pupil referral unit, apologies, would be included in future audits and the future audit plans, because as you say, we have had some issues and points around governance and financial controls, but the PRU always seems to be sort of like separated from the school's audits. So yes, it was just trying to get the clarification from the Section 151 officer if the PRUs would be included in future audits.
Thanks, Councillor Pete. I wonder if Mary or Sarah could help us there, Mary.
Yes. Yeah, I think we had an action, didn't we, to go away and discuss it. Myself, Jane, and Ian had a look at it, and Ian may want to come in and speak on this as well. But essentially, yes, we agree that the PRUs, there's no reason for the PRUs not to be included within an audit cycle in the same way as schools are. I think high schools are reviewed every 3 to 4 years. So we'd suggest a similar kind of cycle, but obviously dependent on the level of risk. There has been, as you're aware, and as you mentioned, there's been a lot of scrutiny around the unit in the north. So, and you know, in over recent years. So I think the suggestion is that we start with the PRU in the south and then look to review the PRU in the north. But Ian, you might want to add a bit to that, if that's okay with you, Chair.
Thank you, of course, Mary. Ian.
I don't think I can add much more to that, to be honest. I think Mary's covered it all. As she mentioned, the PRUs weren't part of our audit coverage, but they do represent similar risks to our other school areas, and so probably they should be on there. I think that's fair to say. Their governance arrangements are slightly different, but still some of the risks are similar, so I think it should be on there. And what we're doing is for the 26-27 year, we will do an audit of the PRU in the south, and for the following year, we'll do an audit of the PRU in the north. And then depending on what we find from that, depending on the risks, we will then look to slot in a suitable cycle depending on that risk from there. So thank you to Councillor Pete for raising it. I think it's very valid, and I think we can reflect that in the audit programme. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and thank you, Councillor Pete, for raising that. I think Mary and Ian have both now confirmed that there will be the PRUs will be in the audit plan going forward on a risk-based approach, as we do with our audit planning generally.
Yeah.
So
thank you, Chair, and thank you, Ian, and thank you, Mary, as well. Thank you.
Thanks. And then the next action point is on page 13. Ian, it's also yours. It was a arising from the root cause analysis discussion.
Happy to update, Chair. Obviously, as part of the root cause analysis, I think it was pointed out by members that in terms of management, there was a differential between the organisational root cause of management, which was around 20%, and the school root cause analysis, which was 31%. So there was a differential. We haven't done the additional work yet to analyse those root causes, but I will bring a report, or I report to the next audit committee to give you an update as best I can around why those will be different based on the data that we have. So at next committee, Chair.
Thanks very much. And Ian, if you could just roll that response into the related point on page 14.
Is that around the 12 monthly one? Yes, absolutely. I think the response on the management actions in schools is specific to committee, and I'll come back to committee at the next meeting. But then I will schedule another root cause analysis for 12 months' time that will go through the normal governance arrangements of senior leadership team and then audit committee. And hopefully we might see a change, or again, we'll be able to analyse trends and patterns and come to you with some positive news.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And then I'm just looking at the minute. Sorry. There's a action point on the cusp of page 17, 18, corporate safeguarding activity report. Officers confirmed that performance had improved. Comparative data would be included in the next report. Nina, is this one for you?
Chair, good morning, Board.
Hi,
Yes.
Nina.
Hi, Nina Davis, Director of Social Services and Wellbeing. Yes, just to confirm, this action has been progressed, and I hope committee will note within the report that's later on the agenda today that a lot more additional information and data has been included for your information, but happy to pick that up in more detail when we get to that agenda item, Chair. Thank you.
Perfect, Nina. Thank you very much. I'll just pause. Are there any other questions or points of correction or clarification on the minute from March meeting? If there are none, I will ask for a proposer and a seconder for the minute to be confirmed.
Propose.
John and Councillor Pete. And a show of hands, is everyone content? Members content? Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Is that okay, Carrie-Anne?
That's perfect. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thanks very much. I'll now invite Audit Wales colleagues for agenda items 6 and 7. First of all, we have item 6, which is the All Wales Capital Report. And I'm looking to you, Gareth Jones, for an introduction to that.
You are indeed. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much.
So, Gareth Jones, Audit Lead at Audit Wales. Chair members, thank you for the opportunity to present this report to you. This national report reviewed how councils in Wales plan their capital spending. What we mean by capital spending is it's the money that the council spends on long-term assets, for example, buildings, schools, roads or equipment. The aim of the audit was to identify how well councils plan their capital spending, whether or not they base their decisions on good information and deliver value for money. We also considered how well councillors are supported to oversee and scrutinise those decisions. We did not assess, it's important to say, individual projects. We instead focus on how well councils plan and manage their overall programmes. In doing so, we reviewed the capital plans and supporting documents of all 22 principal councils in Wales. We undertook local interviews at 6 councils by meeting senior staff and councillors to discuss capital planning. And I'm pleased to note that of those 6 councils, Paris was one of the 6. The key findings for you are that overall, councils have delivered major projects, but there are clear opportunities to strengthen planning and demonstrate better value for money. The first aspect to that is that plans do not consistently show outcomes or value for money. Many councils do not clearly set out what their capital spending is trying to achieve or, importantly, how it links to their priorities, for example, wellbeing objectives. As with any area of spending, being clear on the aims and intended outcomes is a key part of helping councils to assess if they are achieving value for money. We found that it is not always clear how capital plans are helping councils to deliver their priorities. As a result, it's very difficult for councils to be able to show if they are achieving value for money. Reporting tends to focus more heavily on how much has been spent and less on what difference it is making. You often see costs, but not always as much information, as much detail about the results and the outcomes. We found across Wales that there is not a fully developed evidence base, especially around asset condition. I would highlight to members that in making that statement, the report actually includes an interesting practice example from Paris County Councils around the rolling survey of assets that the council is undertaking, and those surveys will share findings into the transformation project, meaning that the capital information will be used with delivery and financial information to make decisions. So it's important when I say that councils do not have a full picture of their asset condition, that there is a nuance there for Paris. Many other councils rely on professional judgment rather than complete and robust data sets. There is a risk that without a strong evidence-based, councils will face risks that future costs may not be fully understood and investment decisions may not be fully well targeted. The clear message is that if councils don't know the condition of their assets, it's harder to plan properly. Short-term focus is driven by funding. Capital funding, particularly grants from Welsh Government, is often short-term, and Welsh Government, as we identify in the report, their notification of the level of capital funding to councils is now much closer to the start of a financial year. That then encourages short-term or opportunistic decisions, and that makes it harder for councils to plan for the longer term and secure better value for money. We found some weaknesses across Wales in terms of the strategic clarity. Capital plans often focus on technical compliance, for example, borrowing rules, but do not always clearly set out how they link to strategic priorities or long-term direction. Importantly, links to wellbeing objectives are often unclear. That means the why behind investment is not always clearly articulated. We found that across Wales there is limited scrutiny and evaluation of capital plans. Councillors do not always receive the training that they need to be able to fulfil that role or have sufficient support to scrutinise decisions. And councils rarely evaluate fully if the projects have delivered their intended benefits. I would note that in Paris, this committee has a capital working group. That means that across Wales, there is not always enough structured oversight after decisions are made. So whilst there will be quite a bit of scrutiny at the point that the investment is being made, there isn't always the oversight about the intended benefits being realised. We made one recommendation, which is that councils should review their capital planning arrangements using the checklist in Appendix 4 of the report. And we stated that there were 3 key priorities for councils across Wales. The first is to improve the evidence base, to ensure that there is a complete and up-to-date understanding of asset conditions and to link that into planning decisions. Secondly, we are encouraging authorities to focus on outcomes and value for money, and in doing so to clearly define their intended outcomes and how success will be measured, and then routinely evaluate if projects deliver those outcomes. And thirdly, strengthen governance and scrutiny by providing training for councillors and enabling effective challenge and oversight. And that's critical given the scale of capital spending and long-term financial risks. In summary, Chair, and I'll close now, councillors face significant challenges balancing long-term capital investment with short-term financial pressures, particularly due to the uncertain and complex grant funding that encourages short-term decision-making. Across Wales, the variability of evidence bases, especially a clear, comprehensive understanding of asset condition, makes decision-making and prioritisation challenging. Not all councils clearly link capital spending to outcomes or priorities, making value for money difficult to demonstrate. In addition, limited strategic clarity, weak evaluation of outcomes, and insufficient support for councillor scrutiny reduce the effectiveness of oversight and decision-making. Members will note that the Council's response form setting out its actions in response to those national recommendations is on pages 25 to 33 of the agenda pack. As you'll know, as part of our Code of Audit Practice, we are required to be satisfied that the Council has properly considered the findings and recommendations. I can confirm that having reviewed the Council's response in the management response form and the covering report, our view is that the Council has properly considered the findings and recommendations of this national report. I will now hand over to Mary Thomas and the Cabinet Member to summarise those responses.
Thank you, Gareth, Mary, and Councillor David, and then I'd like to bring in Gareth as chair of the committee's capital working group to sort of lead on questions and responses from the committee. Mary.
Thank you. I don't know, Councillor David, did you want to speak first, or do you want me to just carry on?
Happy for you to carry on,
okay.
Mary. Yeah.
Thank you. So, yeah, we're really pleased to receive this report, and really pleased at the couple of examples that Gareth mentioned there, where good practice in powers has been sort of used as an example within the report as well. So that's really pleasing to see and hear. Obviously, there's always room for improvement, I think. So you can see in the management response there some of the things that we're looking to put in place now. We already have quite robust governance in terms of the officer-led capital oversight board, and that also ensures that strong alignment with the Council's corporate and strategic equality plan as well. And through our budget process, it is all integrated with our medium-term financial strategy and treasury management strategy as well. So while we've already taken some significant steps to address the issues highlighted in the review, such as maybe improving the review and evaluation, the post-project review and evaluation within the Capital Oversight Board as well. Some of those areas there that we're looking at as well is expanding the use of the asset condition assessments and surveys to inform the capital investment that we need to make over the longer term then as well, and to increase that, as I said, use of post-project evaluations as well. So that's part of our management response to the first element. But building on that, then we will strengthen that systematic use of the condition data, and obviously taking that through the Capital Oversight Board as well, and service level programmes of work, so that the condition information helps to prioritise those investment decisions and requirements, really. And then make sure that we further develop the post-project reports to the Capital Oversight Board for major capital schemes of over 500,000 as well, to come back to the Capital Oversight Board as well. We're also going to strengthen and enhance some of the training that we offer to members, specifically Cabinet, Governance and Audit Committee and Scrutiny Committee members as well. And we're really considering the fact that this time next year we will have had local elections as well. So we'll potentially have a lot of new members or new to their role members as well that we'll look to train up as well and provide that training for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. Thank you, Councillor David. I'll ask Gareth Hall, please, to come in first from the GAC members, but obviously, colleagues, we'll welcome comments and questions from all committee members. But Gareth, if you could kick us off, please.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Chair. And this is me wearing my hat as chair of the working group on capital. So this report is seen as very timely. It confirms and builds on a lot of the thinking that was emerging from the work of our group. So I've got a number of comments which will hopefully build on both the Wales Audit Report and the management's response from the council. The first is a sort of factual question. We had a report presented from Audit Wales back in January, which I think it was about strategic infrastructure investment, Gareth, and that talked about recommended a 15-year time horizon for capital projects, but this report refers to 10. So that's the first point. The second thing is a very important thing comes out of this report, which is the need for dialogue with the Welsh Government. It's been a perennial issue that there's no certainty about multiple year funding, what assumptions to make from year to year. There's always a rush at the end of the financial year because the Welsh Government released the grants in the last quarter. So I think for the council, there is a very urgent and important opportunity to make representations to the new Welsh Government on this. We've got a change of political colour in first time in 19 years. There's 30 odd new assembly members. I think the council, in a coordinated way through the WLGA, should make representations to the new government on this, and hopefully they'll be receptive, and hopefully there will be a consistent approach from the council and its members in lobbying on these long-standing issues. And the other fact is now, I think we'll have 12 Senedd members representing the needs of Powys. So I think there's a good base there for influencing the new government. And the other side of the coin, in the report, the Audit Wales say they'll be making representations to the Welsh Government on these factors. So if we could almost have a pincer movement there, hopefully something positive will come from it. Gareth has made the point about an approach which looks at strategic outcomes from the outset, and when the property becomes an asset is to make sure that those outcomes are realised after this very substantial investment, and tying in not just with the well-being plan and the strategic vision of Powys through Stronger, Fairer, Greener. I think there's another dimension there, which is the priorities, reflecting the priorities which are emerging through Sustainable Powys, and how assets can be invested in the hubs so that they can maximise the critical mass from investing in these strategic focal points up and down the county. Another point is the alignment of the capital plan for the council with realistic capital receipts. Last year, there was an estimate or a target of 10 million. That was removed. I think the actual receipts were 2 million or less. So I think going forward is this realism about what are the potential receipts that the council can achieve each year, because that has a knock-on effect on the capital budget. There's a track record. We as a group have got really good evidence of how the council works in partnership with other public bodies in how it utilises its existing estate, sharing accommodation, selling off accommodation. They bought from the Welsh Government Ladywell House. The use of that's been optimised. So I think that track record could also be translated in planning for new assets and the potential for sharing some of that space and the cost with partner organisations, particularly going back to the point about Sustainable Powys and the hubs, so that these hubs have got comprehensive service, not just from the council, but a joined up approach with other partner organisations. And the last point is about this whole theme of value for money. I think that could be reinforced, because it's not just about value for money in the capital planning, but it's also in the project delivery, in its procurement and its management of the build. And then when it becomes an asset, when it's handed over and occupied, there's this ongoing need to make sure value for money is maintained. Gareth mentioned about checking the actual outputs versus the ones estimated at the start, and also the point made by Mary as well about making sure through the life cycle of this, or the life of these assets, that there's up-to-date condition surveys and timely investment in maintenance. So a number of points there which hopefully build on what is a very robust and comprehensive report.
Thank you very much, Gareth, and thanks for that comprehensive run through as well. I'll just invite any further questions from committee members, and then I'll go back to Councillor David and Mary to respond to any of the points made by members. Councillor Peat.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thank you, Gareth, for that very comprehensive run through there. And I could nowhere near get doing that any justice at all. So thank you very much for that. I just had a very quick question around. We've heard a lot of emphasis on training there, both from Mary and from Gareth during their presentations. And I know the deadline is December 2027, I think, and I sort of like got the gist of why Mary was suggesting we go on for that day. But I just wonder, in view of the risk and the emphasis that's been put on that, is whether A, we should consider adding it to the risk register until we get the training done, and B, whether there might be some form of targeted training that we could do to just get us through the next 12 months before we have the next intake of county councillors. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Councillor Peat. Can I just take the opportunity to kind of broaden the point you've made? Governance and Audit Committee has undertaken skills self-assessments from time to time since I've been a member over the past 4 years. We've periodically undertaken skills self-assessments and identified training needs. This included, but also on a wider range of topics relevant to our constitutional responsibilities. And that training probably, from my perspective, hasn't been forthcoming in the way that I would anticipate, and the committee has actually registered that point in its self-assessments and annual reports for the past couple of years. So I think, obviously not in the meeting necessarily, but I think offline, Mary, would be helpful to have a conversation between yourself and the Section 151 officer and me, and perhaps Gareth Hall now as Vice Chair, to really plan a more consistent and targeted training programme for GAC members. I am sure this will come up in later agenda items as well. But thank you very much, Councillor Peat, for raising it. And I also would be very nervous if we kind of wait for another year until there's election. I would be very nervous about that. So just to sort of add that point on to Councillor Peat's remarks. But any other comments or questions from committee members before I go back to Councillor David and Mary? I'm not seeing them. Mary, Councillor David, very briefly, please, because we have given quite a lot of time to this item. Is there anything you would like to add or respond to?
I think I'll start with the most recent points made, really, in terms of the training. It wasn't the intention to leave it all until December 2027. So yeah, no, it is going to be more of a training programme, but just the deadline was just acknowledging the fact that we will potentially have new members to different committees and that kind of thing. So we wanted to take account of that to make sure that we extended the training through to December. But yeah, no, we're not planning on not starting until after next year. So yeah, no, we will be providing training, and I'll pick that up with Jane, but also with Catherine in terms of any training sort of programme that might be being put together for committees. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
I think I did make a note of some of the other points as well. I think in terms of specific time periods, I don't think there's necessarily a specific time period or that we need to focus on specific time periods in terms of our overall planning, but more that as a council, we operate a 10-year programme, but publish 5 years each time we get to the budget process. But then we also, when we're considering projects and programmes of capital investment, we are looking at that over a whole life costing basis. So we are looking at both the revenue and capital costs over the whole life of the asset. And we certainly, and an example I can give is the work that we did really on the schools transformation capital programme, really looking at the whole transformation programme and taking that whole life approach, costing approach to that, which demonstrated that investing in transformation was the most cost-effective way forward. So so it's a balance, really. I think, as Gareth said, you want to, because assets have a long life, hopefully. You want to be able to plan over that lifetime, but we have to take account of the constraints that we operate within in terms of certainty, in terms of funding as well. But we have to be planning beyond 5 and 10 years, and we do take that into account, certainly on the school side, but we need to expand that into other areas as well, I'd say. I think in terms of the opportunity that we've got at the moment to sort of raise points directly and have those dialogues with Welsh Government, that will already be happening. That is already happening. There's a good relationship between the Welsh treasurers, all Welsh Authority treasurers meet on a regular basis. Welsh Government officials are included within those meetings, as are the WLGA. So there's already that strong network, really, to enable those conversations to be happening, and those representations will already be being planned, I'd have thought, by the WLGA as well. So, but yeah, absolutely, sort of behind that 100%, really. I think in terms of the points made around ensuring that we evaluate the project, make sure that we that the outputs are what we expected and that they're offering us value for money. I think we do some of that now. I think that I have to acknowledge that that's an area that we could do more on, and I think that we've reflected that within our management response as well, to try and build on that, particularly with the Capital Oversight Board, and make sure that we learn as well from any lessons as we go through that process. And similarly, when bids are put forward and papers are put forward to the Capital Investment Oversight Board, they are expected to draw out how they align with sustainable powers. But I think your comment on making sure that it reflects sort of the place-based part of sustainable powers as well, the 5 core towns. I think that's a really important factor for us to continue to build in. And yeah, the point noted really in terms of the capital receipts, and making sure that our expectations are realistic around that. I will say we only commit to use capital receipts that we've already got. We don't rely on unrealised capital receipts in terms of the capital programme, but we do want to continue to see some capital receipts coming through to help fund that capital programme as well. I don't know if I've covered everything, but
well, thank you, Mary. That's a good response for the time being, and thank you to Gareth. So I think the committee is content to note the report and management response, and inevitably this is an area that the committee will continue to pay attention to, given its criticality to sustainable powers and the provision of services and infrastructure going forward. But thank you very much to everyone. I'm moving us on to agenda item 7, which is the Audit Wales annual audit plan, and that will be Eros has taken that.
Yes, thank you, members. Eros Lake, Audit Manager at Audit Wales. As you noted, Chair, item 7 is our annual audit plan for 26-27 for Powys County Council, and the paper is for the committee to receive today. The audit plan covers the work that we'll undertake in Powys Council during 26-27. It sets out how we will deliver the audit over the year, and that is built from a structured, risk-based planning process, and that process continues as the audit progresses so that we can respond as and when changes occur. The plan also signposts the professional framework that we work under. So in summary, the audit work is delivered in line with the Auditor General's approach and the expectations which are set out in the Code of Audit Practice. The plan has got 2 main elements to it. It highlights the financial audit work that we'll undertake during the year, focusing on the 25-26 accounts primarily, and the performance audit work that we'll undertake during the year as well. It also sets out the key members of the audit team so that you know who's who, and it also sets out the estimated audit fee for the year. In terms of who's who, you'll notice that one change in the audit team for the coming year is that page doesn't have Gareth Jones's name listed in the audit team. So we rotate audit staff periodically in line with our ethical standards. Gareth is a familiar face to the committee, having coordinated our performance audit programme for a number of years. He's not going far. He'll continue to support the team, but for the coming year, our colleague Alison Lewis will coordinate the delivery of our performance audit programme in Powys Council. David Burridge, our colleague, is another member of the audit team, and David coordinates the financial audit work in the council. I'll hand over to David now just to outline the key elements of our financial audit activity within the plan.
Thanks, Eros. David, all yours.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Eros. Yes, so our financial audit work is set out on page 6 onwards. As you said, this work is for the 2025-26 set of accounts. Just for clarity, I mentioned earlier about the new ledger coming in and we're making recommendations about that. That will be for the 2026-27 accounts. So this is the last year on the old system. So we undertake the audit work on the accounts plus additional work on whole of government account return, which is a very light touch given the size of the Powys Council. It's there's not a great deal of audit work in that respect. We also audit the pension fund accounts, which you received the plan for separately at the last committee, and we deal with any sort of any questions or challenges to the accounts. In addition, we do the certification of a number of grant claims and other returns, such as the pension fund, the Teachers' Pension Fund and the NNDR to Welsh Government and housing benefit and pool budgets. So those will be undertaken later in the year. So the main aim of this plan now is our financial audit. So audit the 25-26 accounts. There we set out then on page 6 and 7 our planned materiality levels based on gross expenditure. Once we receive the draft account, we'll be updating these. So expect to see a slight change, and we'll obviously report back on that on the end of the audit, the actual materiality we used. Just to explain that we reporting what the threshold for trivial is. So when reporting errors back to you, anything below 310,000, we wouldn't report back, formally. We report back to officers, but we wouldn't report back to those charged with governance formally. We do, however, consider if there are multiple errors, if they combined breach that limit, then we would report those. Then the report goes on to the significant areas of the audit, just to bring to your attention. The risk of management override is relevant to all accounts, and this is the standard testing we do, looking at journals, estimates of bias, and any sort of unusual transactions that we need to understand. And then we go into areas of focus sort of the audit. So the pension fund obviously is quite significant balance and is a huge estimate. So we look at that in quite a lot of detail. And there's also the training evaluation happened this year as well. So to consider that for our work. The valuation of land and buildings is another area with significant values and significant estimates in. There is a change to SIPFA requirements in the code this year with the use of indices. So that's something new for us that we will have a look at as part of the audit. And then senior officer remuneration. This is an area where we apply a lower level of materiality. So there's quite an area of focus to ensure that the disclosure is correct and the payments are in line with what's been approved. And finally, related parties, transactions, another area of higher interest in the account. So we have a lower materiality on that as we look at the disclosures and the completeness of those disclosures. And then finally, the audit timetable is set out on page 13. So for that, since January to March, we've been doing the planning work and some early interim work. And we're due to get the accounts on the 12th of June, which is earlier than we've had it previously. It's normally been the end of June. So we'll be making plans to kick the audit off then and complete the audit by September 2026. Okay, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, and thanks, Eros. And also just for the record, please record the committee's thanks to Gareth for his support to the committee whilst he's been working on our area with Audit Wales. So thanks very much to Gareth. Our role here is to look at the plan. Is it comprehensive? Does it respond to the risks that we are aware of within the council, and to scrutinise the plan and seek assurance that it is comprehensive and serves Powys County Council appropriately for the next year. I'll invite any questions from members, please.
Chair,
John.
in terms of, sorry, Chair.
Oh, sorry,
I was going to say, no, that's fine. It's just in terms of the comprehensiveness of the plan. I'm happy to very quickly summarise the performance audit projects which I propose, if that would be helpful before the questions, or
No, I think, Eris, work on the basis that everyone has had the opportunity to read the paper.
That's fine, thank you.
And there might be some questions specifically, but I'll go to John but bring that in any responses that you make in response to questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair.
Excuse me. Sorry about that. I was just wondering, Chair, given the condensed timescales this year, are we confident we have a sufficient resource in place in both Audit Wales and indeed in Powys to meet those timescales?
For the financial audit?
Yes, excuse me then, sorry.
Yeah, no.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. So, Mary and David, are you confident that your teams are resourced sufficiently for the financial audit?
From an audit perspective, and it's within our plans. I think it's key that when we get the draft accounts in good time, together with a pretty comprehensive set of working papers. Obviously, Audit Wales wide, we've got in the 22 local authorities to do, but Powys have got a good track record, to be fair, in delivering the accounts on time. So. Yeah, we think we're in a good place.
Good, thank you. And Mary, are you comfortable?
I am, yes, thanks, Chair. We were aware that the deadlines were moving forward this year, and we added we gave it special attention because of the change of financial system as well. So yeah, I'm comfortable. It's certainly not easy time for the team. They've been working really, really hard, but I am comfortable that we will hit those deadlines. Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks both. Any other questions from committee members in the first instance? Just from me, and picking up at Eris's point about the comprehensive nature of the plan, but really a question to officers. Are officers comfortable and content with the scope and scale of the plan? I guess that's a question for Mary and Catherine.
From a financial point of view, yes, I think it covers everything that we'd expect it to. I think as Eros alluded to, there's maybe not as much detail within the plan as maybe they've got sitting behind it. So, but I'll let Catherine come in on the performance side. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine.
Hi. Yeah, no, it's fine. It would be useful to have some indicative times by when you're going to do the follow-up audits. There's no sort of specific detail there. It's, and we have had quite a few happen. So if we could have that would be really useful.
Thanks, Catherine. Thanks. Eros, I'll give the final word to you then, please, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, in terms of performance audit element, you'll have seen in pages 14 to 16 of the plan, we've got three main elements there. So they very much sit within the Auditor General's wider statutory responsibilities. But again, that work is similarly delivered in accordance with the Code of Audit Practice. The first focus is around counter fraud. Undertaking that work to review the Council's arrangement to prevent and to detect and respond to fraud and error, reflecting the ongoing risks and expectations that the Councils maintain robust arrangements in that respect. And secondly, you'll see the review proposed around the highway services. Again, a focused review looking at how the Council manages highway services and uses its resources and plans and delivers services in the long-term sustainable way, no doubt picking up some of the themes that we've just touched on earlier in the earlier item as well. And as Catherine said, the third element then is around our monitoring and follow-up activity, where we'll continue to track progress against previous recommendations. We are conscious that we have made a number of recommendations in post councils in recent years across a range of important topics, and then monitoring and following up is important to ensure those improvements are implemented, embedded and sustained as well. So in terms of the timescales for doing that, some of that partly will be, in particular, the monitoring part of it will be an ongoing piece of work, and it will inform our ongoing risk assessment. Whether we need to follow up specifically then on some recommendations, we'll take a view on that with officers during the year, but the monitoring will continue in the background throughout the year.
Thank you very much, Eros, and thank you, Catherine and Mary and David. And obviously this committee is going to take a very strong interest in the follow-ups as well as we move forward. But I think we can move on, and the committee has noted the report and its comprehensive risk-based nature. And thank you very much, everyone who's been involved in preparation and responses from officers as well. Let's move on to swap items. Agenda item 8, Ian, the Q3 internal audit report. I'll also be looking to hear from Mary on this item as well, because Ian, I will be looking to you really to update us on progress against plan, but looking to Mary and other officers to focus on progress on implementation of recommendations, because that is officers' responsibility. So Ian, please, and then obviously bringing in Mary as appropriate.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be brief. It's item 8 on the agenda, and it's one of our standing reports around our activity and progress. This report was done at the end of January, so it's just a little bit longer than Q3. And to give you a brief update on the headlines, in terms of swap and the audit plan, we are on track to substantially deliver the audit plan for the year. In terms of outcomes, it looks like based on the opinions that we've had so far that it's indicative that we'll be giving a reasonable opinion at the end of the year in our annual opinion report. There's one area of concern in there, and that's high school, and that will be presented to the next audit committee in detail. But there's no significant or material high risks there. In terms of action tracking, you mentioned action tracking, Chair. The council are at the moment in a position that they've implemented or 95.4% of total actions. So that means they've either implemented or they're not yet due. So there are just less than 5% of things that are overdue. And that's judged on the last 24 months rolling period. One thing I will mention, we've had a bit of additional functionality within Optro, which is our new system recently, and that means at the end of every month, or the start of every month actually, and this is starting in June, every service head will be emailed to identify the outstanding and overdue actions. And from that email, then the head of service will be able to click on a link and update those actions on our system. And I guess the benefit of this is it means that we don't need to track them as internal auditors, which is good because at the moment there's a heavy tracking process that's undertaken by us. But also the data will be live. It will be much more accurate and timely and up to date. So that's a real benefit. And then finally, in terms of the quality of our work, the client have rated us as 98% satisfactory in terms of the work that we do. So that's positive as well. If there are any questions, Chair, about the specifics of the report, I will gladly try and answer them.
Thanks. John? John, you're on mute still. And then I'll have John and then go to Councillor Pete.
Apologies, I'm music cough. Ian, thank you very much. I'm looking at page 208 in our pack, and I'm looking at the satisfaction level. As you said, overall, it's very creditable. But are there lessons to be learned in the scope section, which isn't quite as good?
You couldn't point me in a bit more detail in particular.
On page 208, if you go to there, we have a score of 83% on scope.
Yeah.
All right, and in particular, there's a wodge of red in there, and I'm just wondering if there are any lessons to be learned, and a bit more flesh on the bones of that problem.
Yes, I think that's the purpose of having this quality questionnaire, isn't it? It is to learn lessons. So 100%, I agree. There are lessons to be learned. What you tend to find is that an 83% scope is where one person will have indicated, probably be one person would have indicated that they were unhappy with that. So the vast majority of people are happy with the scope. But it does happen, and I think in that case, we've had a look at that, and some of the dissatisfaction was around the way it had been communicated, and around some of the contents. Although it does also coincide with a bad audit opinion as well, which is also an interesting. So absolutely. We have looked at that one, and we've looked at the details behind why we think it's failed, and we are trying to make sure that those things don't happen again. And I would like to think this 83% will be on there for a little while because it sticks around, and it's a rolling way that we monitor this. But it should go up again. If it goes down, again, there are more things to learn. And so, but I'm happy that we are monitoring and learning the lessons from this process.
Okay, thank you, Ian.
Thank you, Ian. And sorry, a wry smile when you said, because we see it so often, that the scope comes into contention when people aren't happy with the outcome of the audit. this is not something that's unique to Powys at all. It's typical of many, many organisations. But thanks for that question, John. Councillor Pete.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I've just got two questions now, actually. There was just one off the back of that for Ian. I don't have to put those percentages in a bit of context. It might be worthwhile putting down how many actually responded, because if I've got my maths right, if one person's changed it by 17%, that means only 6 people have responded. So that could be useful for us to just put those percentages in context. The other point I was going to ask Ian, again, is around context, sorry. It's the role and opinion, which is on page 204. And that sort of like says that there is a sound system of, excuse me while I just scroll up, a sound system of governance, risk management, and controls in place. But then when I flip over to the right, and I sort of see there's 168 actions, of which 8 are fundamental and 45 are important. That doesn't sound very sound to me. So I don't know if there's some context around what sound system actually means, please.
Thank you, Councillor Pete. Ian.
That's an excellent question. In terms of the numbers, going back to the quality process, yeah, more than happy to put the numbers in there to give you an idea of context around that. In terms of the rolling opinion, it is an opinion, and there are no industry standard structures and frameworks that dictate how we determine that opinion. What we do as auditors, though, we have to look at the bigger picture. We have to accept that in a complex and deeply challenging environment like a local government, a local council, there are going to be areas where improvements can be made. And so I'm not surprised that there are a number of opinions that would indicate that they're limited. What I can say is, in terms of the past, the history about where we are, this year's kind of figures are in line with that. Now, that's not to say that the opinion is correct, but in terms of my opinion as the head of audit, the experience that I have, what I see in the industry, in the sector, the figures that I can see there would indicate, and it is only an indication, that in general, the major systems are sound. And if there were significant issues, I would bring those to your attention. And I haven't, throughout the year, brought anything to you that's significant, that it represents a high risk that the council's objectives would fail. So it is an opinion, but it is based on the fact that we haven't had anything that's that significant that the council's organisational objectives would not be achieved. So that's how I make the opinion.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. If I may, Chair. Yeah. So it sounds like from there, then, Ian, it's like subjective, bit of a gut feel, but based on your experience and your knowledge of not only Powys but the wider organisations, rather than us being able to actually go down some form of checklist to go through it. Okay.
That's correct. That's correct, Councillor Beat.
Yeah.
Thanks, both. My kind of interpretation of Ian's explanation was it's an art and a science. It's not just about the numbers. It's yeah.
No, got it. Yeah, thank you.
So thank you very much. Mari, would you like to add anything to this item in terms of progress and what SLT I know is very committed to moving progress numbers forward and keeping a firm eye on this?
Yes, thank you, Chair. As you'll know, there's been a significant improvement in terms of outstanding actions, and we've brought it down to a fairly steady 5% now. That's not to say that we're complacent around that at all. And it is raised regularly at the senior leadership team as well, just to make sure that people are aware that there are outstanding actions and that they will be scrutinised, obviously, through this committee as well. I'm really pleased to hear what Ian was saying about the new developments now with Optro and those monthly emails to heads of service, because I think that will ensure a regular visibility around this, and make it easier as well for those updates to be provided, and make sure that we are on top of the outstanding actions. So yeah, I think that will be a really good development for the future. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Mary. Are there any further questions or points that committee members wish to make on this report? If not, I will thank Ian for the report and note the report and move us on to agenda item 9. So we're now in corporate items, and I'll invite Gemma Gabriel to briefly introduce the whistleblowing policy update. Gemma.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. This is a slight amendment to the whistleblowing policy. It's as a result of the Employment Rights Act that came in last year. There are various different elements to that act that are being introduced over a phased period, and April of this year was a key period in time where some of that act was introduced. One of which was an amendment to the whistleblowing legislation that recognises sexual harassment as a protected disclosure. Therefore, we've needed to make an amendment to the policy. It's a very minor amendment, just including that in point 1.3. Also, just to reassure committee that in October of this year, there are further obligations on organisations to take all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment in the workplace. So we are drafting a policy at the moment, and we'll be looking at training as well. That obligation comes in of October of this year, so everything will be in place for then. But for now, and for this committee, it's a decision, well, just feedback really on the policy, whether there's any comments.
Thanks very much, Gemma, and thanks for bringing that change, albeit relatively minor, but important to the committee's attention. I'll just briefly invite any questions or comments from committee members. Pete, Councillor Pete.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, and again, thank you to Gemma for bringing the policy, and also thank you to Gemma and the others for all the work that we did through the working group to get us where we are today. So much appreciated. I think the policy looks fine, and we did a lot of reviews at the working group. The only just thought I've got in my mind though, Gemma, is whether or not we've talked about policy. It's on the agenda as policy, but it's headed up policy and procedure. So my thought was, can we just get the procedure bits out of it and actually make it a policy?
Yeah, I think it's just that our obligation is to put that normally within our policies. We do have the procedure element to it as well, just so that people are clear the steps that they need to take in order to report whistleblowing. I think if we had two separate documents, it means people have got to look into two separate places, but certainly perhaps within the policy we can look at separating it out so it's a little bit clearer.
Or should we just call it policy rather than policy and procedure then?
Oh yeah, we could just call it policy.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Pete. Gemma, we'll leave that one with you to mull over and think about how best to present the document for easy access and understandability, if that is indeed a word. But thank you very much, Gemma. I think the committee is content to note the minor change and notes your comments about forthcoming further changes in October. So thank you very much, Gemma, for that.
Thank you.
I'll move us on to agenda item 10, which is the value for money report. If Mary, if you could sort of briefly introduce where we are with value for money, because it's been a wee while in the cooking this time, but if you could introduce it, Mary.
Thank you, Chair. And yes, you're right. It has been in development for some time. So I'm really pleased to bring it forward to committee now. And I think I'd like to start by saying it very much represents a first step, really, in our reporting of value for money. It's an important first step, but I think there's more that we need to do to develop it further. But it was important to get this first step to committee and just to start that strengthening of the council's overall approach to demonstrating and evidencing value for money as well. So I'll take it that everyone's read the report, but just a quick overview really. So it brings together some of the key strands such as financial performance, risk, and where it's available benchmarking. And the idea is that we will develop this further then to support more informed scrutiny, but also to support more informed decision making and evaluation of decision making as well. So it is very much an evolving area, and there is further develop that we need to do to just be clearer and to enhance the reporting of value for money and how that can be assessed in practice by scrutiny committees, particularly in terms of linking financial information and service outcomes and risk in a way that's accessible and meaningful to everybody involved, really. So the intention is, therefore, that this report provides that foundation on which we can start to develop and expand it, really, to provide that more mature and comprehensive approach to value for money and get that developed over time. But help, and the feedback from this committee as well will certainly help our further development in that and ongoing work on value for money across the organisation. I think what I'd like to highlight is, a lot of the cornerstones are in place: the performance management framework, the risk management, and certainly the budget management and financial performance side of things. So it's about pulling that together, making sure that we use benchmarking more consistently than we do currently. Benchmarking does happen, but it's maybe not as consistent or as comprehensive as we'd like it to be. So that would be a further piece of work that we need to do now over the next period, is develop the benchmarking side. But yes, really pleased to be able to bring this to committee today, and would welcome your views, really, to help us develop it further. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary. So this is still an approach and a product in the making, but it's a first step and helps us understand the general thrust and framework that Mary and her team are working to. As Mary has asked for any comments that would support the ongoing comments and questions that would support the ongoing development of Powys County Council's approach to value for money recording, and that will support scrutiny and ongoing policy and decision making. And I can see Councillor Peate's got his hand up. Councillor Peate.
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Mary. And I note yours and Mary's comments about this being a first step and it being an evolving process. So please take what I'm going to say in that context. I think when I've read what we've got there before us today, it seems to me to be about documenting the processes and being an attempt to justify that we are providing value for money. Whereas I would like to see a bit more of an emphasis on actually evaluating the effectiveness of those processes. And for me, just one instance, for example, is by, say, looking at the complaints report that we get, because for me, the best judges of are we giving value for money are the residents, and we do need to listen to them, and perhaps there might also be a thread of work where we could work backwards from the complaints and look at our processes to see where we could perhaps improve value for money around there. But as I say, I understand this is a first attempt, so please just take that comment in that context, please. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Pete, and thank you for recognising that this is something in the making, and that the team has been working hard to develop the framework as it is now. I can see Councillor Jackie would like to come in, and then I'll bring in Emma, Chief Executive. Jackie.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here. I just wanted to make an observation, really, on point 4, the climate change and nature implications. I'm really pleased to see that it's very simply put, but we often get a perception that anything to do with the climate and nature costs us money, when actually there are really good value for money indicators out there for putting things into place for the climate and nature emergency. So I really just wanted to pull that out and make that observation and say thank you for whoever wrote that. Very simply put, very importantly. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me. Thank you very much, Councillor Jackie, and point well made, and a welcome point. Thank you. Emma.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, committee. Thank you for the kind words so far. Councillor Lewington is quite right in terms of it is process heavy, which we do recognise. But I hope that the committee have also seen really clearly within the appendices that there are examples. So rather than just process, there are examples of where we're able to demonstrate value for money. And so something as simple as business cases that come through. Every school development, there's a business case. Powers Home Care Homes, there's a business case. So any of the changes, and it's through that cost benefit analysis within there that we're able to test the value for money component. And I wouldn't want that to be lost in amongst the process that's set out in Appendix A, because some of those examples over the past year or so are also articulated within their chair, and I just wanted to make sure that that committee were aware of that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emma, and thanks for bringing that to our more detailed attention. As we completely recognise that the teams are not starting from scratch on this. You know, and again, in support of Mary's opening remarks, I can certainly see huge potential in this document, and not just as a document, but as an evidence-based tool that is used by scrutiny committees and this committee and colleagues across the authority to really drive the ambition of sustainable powers, the drive for value for money. So I guess we're being patient with the development of this, because we can see the huge potential that it has going forward to support your work and the work of the council. So all power to your elbow, Mary, and I'm assured by Emma's intervention in this agenda item that CLT is behind this and will be encouraging all business areas to support this endeavour as best they possibly can. So if there are no further points or questions, I will move us on to, I will thank Mary very much for her endeavours in this, and note the report and look forward to seeing further iterations, and bring in Nina with her regular corporate safeguarding activity report.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Chair. So Governance and Audit Committee this morning has a report for information, which is a normal activity report from the Corporate Safeguarding Board meeting, which took place on the 12th of March of this year. Within the activity report, you'll see updates and key important updates from the Regional Safeguarding Board. You'll also see a really important item that was considered at depth and at length by the board, which was a discussion on the Gwynedd Child Practice Review, Our Bravery Brought Justice. You'll note within the activity report that the Children's Services has submitted a detailed response via the Regional Safeguarding Board to Welsh Government on the recommendations from that Gwynedd Child Practice Review. We had a discussion at the board and agreed that a further update on progress against those recommendations will be coming back to the board in the future as well. Within the activity report, there are updates and focus on safeguarding and education, on mandatory training, work ongoing in terms of volunteers, the volunteer policy, and work for volunteers to be included within management systems. There's also regular updates from adults, children's and housing included for information as well. Following on from the action as well that we've had from yourselves previously, you'll note that the report is a lot more detailed. A lot more information, narrative, data and evidence being included. I hope that meets your expectations, but I'd be very grateful for any comments and feedback on that report as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Nina. A good report as always. I'm opening the floor to questions from members, please. No particular questions?
No.
Councillor Rafe, I can see you've joined with your camera. Is there anything you want to comment?
Chair, I was only turning on my camera just in readiness for the next item.
No, okay, that's fine. Not to worry about it. I thought, oh, there's a change there, just in case you wanted to ask or contribute, even though it's not your area. I'm just pausing. Nina, you've provided such a comprehensive and brilliant report that there are no questions today. But please don't imagine that is a reflection of our interest in your work, because we are really interested in the work, and it's very welcome to receive this report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I will move us on, therefore, to item 12, corporate complaints. And Helen Dolman supports this item. Is Helen with us? Oh, yes,
yeah, Helen is with us. If it's okay, I'll run through the report very quickly, and then just take some questions, and then I'll give them to officers where appropriate. Thank you.
Absolutely.
So, Chair, this report is to brief your committee on the corporate complaints received to the Council between the period 1st November 2024 to the 31st of October 2025. The information provides reference to corporate complaints and does not include those complaints in relation to social care, information rights regimes, or whistleblowing. You will recall in our last report, we introduced a recording system from April 2025 to capture details of lessons learned and actions to be implemented, with the intention that this will reduce the likelihood of similar complaints being received by the Council in the future. The summary of the report is that there was an 8% increase in the number of complaints received by the Council for the period, from 820 from the previous year to 884 for this period. No specific reason can be given for this. Some services had a reduction in complaints and some services had an increase. In conclusion, the complaints made to the Council are managed effectively and in line with Council policy, and in respect of the newly introduced system for recording lessons learned. By embedding this practice, we've been able to strengthen our understanding of customers' needs and expectations, and use this process to more effectively drive service improvements and continue to enhance the overall customer experience. Section 8 discusses our approach moving forward, and this is to undertake a review of the Council's corporate complaints process as included in the Services Integrated Business Plan. The review will focus on moving the organisation from managing complaints reactively to helping us manage them proactively to improve outcomes and strengthen public trust in line with the corporate plan of becoming a stronger, greener and fairer Powys. I'm happy to take any questions, and we'll bring officers in where appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Rafe. Oh, something funny happened to my computer there. I'm so sorry.
We can still hear you. It's all fine.
That's okay. Thanks very much, Councillor Rafe. And I've just been going to say that from my perspective, there seems to have been quite a clear improvement in the way this information is being presented to us over the past year or so. So it's very welcome, and very, very welcome the kind of ongoing improvement, especially the lessons learned, the focus on lessons learned, which is great. However, I'll open the session up more broadly to questions from colleagues. Councillor Pete.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah, it was just on the lessons learned, and I'm just looking at Appendix 5 where we've got the breakdown, and we've got like two bar charts, I guess. So I'm assuming bar chart 1, which is by departments, those lessons learned are further broken down into categories in the bar chart underneath that. I think just the bit that's missing for me is I don't really know enough meat on the bones around what the lessons learned were. And then some of them, when I look at documented processes not followed, no document process in place, process review, and indeed policy review required. I'm not seeing whether there were any controls implications from them, or what the deadline is to address those lessons learned. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Pete.
Thank you very much thank you for the question, and we do recognise that the there could be greater clarity provided on the lessons learned. I think there's a balance to be had in this report in respect of its purpose of bringing together all the complaints across all services in the council, and the need to report on a more wider basis, to then including the finite detail in respect of each complaint, as indeed there are a number of them. But we absolutely accept that, and if you would like some additional information, then we can absolutely provide that. We are looking at strengthening the process whereby services input the data related to the lessons learned. At the moment, there's a free text element to the system, and there are some inconsistencies there across the services whereby some are good at putting in significant levels of detail and others not so good. And so we understand that there are some resource challenges and that takes time. And so we're looking at how we can strengthen the system using some drop down. I'm trying to think of the word now, but where the text is already put in and they can select from it and then amend it as appropriate. And that will hopefully allow us to gather more information, and then we can collate that and provide you with the detail that you require. But more than happy to take that back and to include that in future reports. But I hope you recognise that there is a significant amount of detail in here, much more than there was, and the appendices do drill down quite a bit, but absolutely take your point, and that's accepted. Thanks.
Yeah. Could I just add a comment, Chair, on that?
Of course, Councillor Pete,
yeah. Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor Rafe. Yeah, no, I do understand and I accept that, and yes, I can see the much more detail in the report. Yeah, I guess what I'm just trying to weigh up is, I don't want to create a mammoth industry around doing lots and lots of detail of the report. So it's just though trying to get in if you like an assurance when I see that the processes aren't followed and policy reviews. I don't know whether or not there could just be a simple line that says none of these had any major control implications or words to that effect, just to give us that assurance, or if they do, just to understand the implications and the urgency of the matter that was raised.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to take that back. I think we fully understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. I'm just going to build on Councillor Pete's theme a wee bit, and looking at paragraph or section 6 and paragraph 6.2, which again is lessons learned. I think Councillor Rafe, you're kind of driving at this through the technological response that you were talking about, but where things are being changed and improved, I just wondered if section 6 could look and feel a bit more like an action plan, with a sense of the timescales for improvements and changes and things like that. But these are points of detail and for ongoing improvement. And as I said in my opening remarks, since I've been seeing this report on a regular basis, it is steadily improving. So that's all good stuff.
Yes, absolutely. We can take that back. And I've had, obviously, as you would expect, discussions with the team on this, and because we've strengthened the process so much, and we've got a lot of data now, we'll be able to benchmark back using previous data to see actually how the system is working and how it's performing. In respect of its purpose to reduce the number of complaints coming forward, we'll be able to see exactly why those complaints are coming forward and what are the key themes, and to be able to compare how many we've received in one period to another. And providing the lessons learned are being implemented across different services, then they'll receive less complaints in those areas. So there will be far more detail in future reports, and we're more than happy to take your comments back. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you very much. Councillor Pete, I'll give you the very last question on this item, and then we'll move on.
Thank you, Chair. I was just looking at page 279 in the pack, and there's 3 bullets under the heading of themes of recommendations not to be implemented, and I was just trying to understand them in a bit more detail, because they sort of just seemed a bit random to me. So I guess when I look at the first one, delegation of complaints handling. And the rationale is I can't delegate it because I've got no one to delegate to. I don't know who was wanting to delegate something and who they were expecting to delegate it to. or why they needed to delegate it. And I don't know if there's if the portfolio holder or Helen could give us a bit more detail around context around those again, please.
I could give you some detail, but I think Helen will be able to give you the detail that you require. So Helen, if you
Thanks,
could
Ray.
kindly come in here. Thank you.
Yeah. When the service, the investigating officer is inserting their lessons learned and the actions that they're going to take for those lessons learned, they then are looking at whether those are going to be implemented, because the person obviously making the recommendations or the actions may not actually be the person who makes the final decision. So as I was looking through the reports, I picked out a few of the ones where the actions weren't going to be implemented, and just to give a flavour of why some actions that may be logged haven't actually been implemented and wouldn't be implemented. But that would be a service decision that it wouldn't be implemented.
So is that, Helen, are you saying it's not resource in your team handling the complaint, it's resource in the
No,
services? There's
these
no
are
one to
actions that are
delegate
coming
it
from
to.
the service area themselves and the investigating officers. These not to be implemented were inserted just so numbers made a little bit more sense, and you could see the potentially that not all actions suggested by the investigating officer could or would be implemented.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Helen. Thanks, Councillor Rafe. I think the committee is happy to note the report and understands that it will be going to Cabinet, and thank Councillor Rafe and Helen and the team for their work on this, which is steadily improving as we've said. So thank you very much, colleagues.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 13, which is Catherine on the Q4 regulatory tracker update. Catherine.
Hello. Thank you. So yeah, on page 281 of your agenda packs, there's a report which provides an overview of how we are responding to external recommendations that we've received from regulators. So this is positioned as at the end of Q4, so that would be the end of March. So overall progress is positive. So most actions are either complete or on track. An extract of the regulatory tracker is in the agenda pack on page 291 to 293. And this is taken from an interactive report that we use to monitor those recommendations and the progress made. Governance and Audit Committee members do have access to that report whenever they so choose. So in terms of the quarter summary, which is on page 282, there were 36 recommendations in total, covering both open items and those that closed in the quarter. 8 new ones were received in that quarter, so they were from Audit Wales, relating to an audit which was titled Sustainable Powers, the Council's Governance Arrangements Supporting Its Approach. And of those 8 new ones, 4 have been complete in the quarter and 4 are still on track. 25 recommendations remained open and 19 of those were on track and 6 off track. And the details of those are all explained in this report pack, if you'd like to sort of delve into a little bit more. And then we have 11 recommendations that were completed in the quarter. And again, the detail on those is on pages 287 and 88. So overall governance arrangements remain strong and we have clear oversight through our senior leadership team and corporate tracking.
Thank you very much, Catherine, and comprehensive report. Thank you. I'll invite any comments or questions from Governance and Audit Committee members, please. Not seeing any hands. Catherine, I think the committee is happy to note your report, and again, as we've mentioned a few times in this meeting, the way this information is brought to the committee has significantly improved over the last year or so. So I wish to reiterate my thanks to Catherine for that, and also say the same as I said with Nina's report. Please don't take our lack of questions as a lack of interest, Catherine. Take it as a compliment to the comprehensive nature of the report.
Oh, I'll pass that on to the team.
Thank you very much, and thank you, colleagues. We are moving on to agenda item 14, which is a risk deep dive, and the risk deep dive is on recruitment and retention risk within Powys County Council. And Gemma, you're going to lead us through that. Please introduce the risk, and you have provided us with a really good slide pack, which I know you'll want to introduce, but please also assume that colleagues have had the opportunity to read the slides. Thanks, Gemma, but over to you.
Great, thank you, Chair. And good morning again, everyone. I'll just share the presentation, but I will just whiz through just to give you a summary. Hopefully that's coming through for you.
Yeah, we've got it, thanks.
Great, thank you. So the risk itself around recruitment and retention, I won't read out the risk, but essentially it's our ability to recruit and retain the workforce so that we can deliver the services that. Just a bit of background. The risk. So I'm trying to do it as a slideshow and it's not clicking. So I'll just skim through them. But in terms of a background, so the risk has been in place for some time, a number of years. Originally, it was set up due to the recruitment crisis and challenges really that we had in social care. But over recent years, it's expanded to include wider services and wider challenges that we've got around recruitment and retention. And there's been significant progress made over recent years. And the real important shift from that is that it's enabled us to look beyond those immediate recruitment crises to be putting in sustainable plans for the future. So we're able to plan and recruit, not just for now, but also for the future. And to support this, we've been doing a more fundamental risk, review of the risk more recently, and undertaken some workshops with the Strategic Qualities and Risk Officer, BETS, using the bow tie technique, which is a detailed tool that you can use to look at the causes of the risk, how they're controlled and how we're mitigating them, just to really be satisfied that we've comprehensively looked at what those challenges are for us within Powys and that we've got effective plans in place to address them. The last deep dive presentation to the committee was in March 2025. And at that point, because of the mitigation initiatives that we'd already put in place, the risk score value reduced from 16 to 12. But due to the want to look at this strategically, it's been maintained on the strategic risk register, but we may look to review that. So just a really high-level summary of some of the progress and impact since the last time I presented this risk to you last year. We continue to see improvement in the measures identified in the Corporate and Single Equality Action Plan, and there are two key measures that we use there. The first one being the number of vacancies that we're advertising across the council. That excludes schools, that measure. I'll come on to schools. It's not that we're excluding them completely, but for the purposes of this measure, we only look at our corporate services. And we can see that over the last 3 years, there's been a 40% reduction in the number of vacancies that we've got live and actively looking to recruit. And our ability to recruit first time is also a key measure that we've got, because we've been really looking to ensure that the lead time from when a vacancy arises to somebody starting is reduced. And over the last 3 years, we've seen a 32.7 improvement over the last 3 years. And again, that just means that if we can recruit, then it means we can deliver our services. Some of the other initiatives that we've put in place to try and help and support that and mitigate against the risk is that we continue to invest in our graduate opportunities across the council. We're currently interviewing for a September 2026 intake of 2 graduates. We had 2 graduates in 2024 that are due to end their programmes this year. One of those who we had in 2024 has already secured a permanent position with the authority, and we're looking to support the other graduate that we've had to secure something by the end of August. We also this year offered it was a targeted, as part of the LGA programme again, but it was a targeted opportunity that was a team within our HTR service where there's a particular recruitment challenge and they were interested in an opportunity for an LGA graduate. So we've looked at a particular hard to fill area and tried to use this initiative to fill a gap there as well. And an offer has been made. I understand that offer hasn't been accepted yet, but there was a good pool, so we're confident that we'll be able to recruit to that role. The table there is just to give an example and a flavour of how we use the apprenticeship levy and some of the funding. So it's not just fixed term apprenticeships. We've also got staff development. So some of our staff over the last 2 years have been on apprenticeship frameworks that are funded through the apprenticeship levy. And that's about upskilling our current staff. So that's succession planning for the future and talent management. Career graded opportunities, that's where we've got a vacancy within the council and we've appointed somebody that hasn't yet got the qualification or skills to undertake the full role. We'll take them on as a career graded opportunity, provide them with the training and qualification that they need. Once they've then obtained that, they then go into the role as a full role and on a permanent basis or whatever the post is for. And then we've got the traditional fixed term apprenticeships where people come for normally 2 years attached to a framework, apprenticeship framework, and then at the end of that hope to secure a position within the authority. So you can just see the numbers there over the last 2 years that we've continued to invest. The Grow Your Own scheme in social care that we've previously reported to you continues to deliver a reduction in staff vacancies and a reduction in agency costs. In terms of supporting existing staff, we've got 6 support staff networks that are live. They're led by staff. There are champions within each of those groups. So those groups are led. They normally meet on a monthly basis. You can see the 6 areas there, and they're coordinated centrally within People Services. We've got an officer that links in with each of those key coordinators of those groups, and they're key to driving forward some of those initiatives. Recent example is a reasonable adjustment passport. That initiative came from that group and we've now implemented that across the authority. We're also looking to join up with PTHB on some of those networks, again, to just benefit from some of those sharing that best practice. The neurodiversity network is already joint with PTHB and we're in discussions in the final stages of also ensuring that our carer network is also joint. We've recently achieved the Disability Confident Leader status. This is an external accreditation and it's the highest level of accreditation that shows that our commitment to being a disability confident employer. And all of those things, including the networks, I think demonstrates that we're actively embedding inclusion into our recruitment culture, leadership and ways of working. And one of the key success factors of this really is that this was highlighted in the staff survey, that staff really welcome that inclusive approach and the wellbeing initiatives. So it's key not only for recruitment because we're able to promote those badges and promote Powys as being an inclusive employer, but also for retention. One of the key things that we've introduced this year is our workforce data dashboards. So we've always held data and data insights, but we've pulled all of that together into one space. So it provides comprehensive data on workforce and also key people risk reports, which is what our workforce planning is based on. So it's not just what our data tells us, but it highlights what those particular people risks are. So for example, it would look at any particular area that has a high proportion of ageing workforce. So it tells us that we need to look at perhaps the next 5 to 10 years and how we combat that and where our target areas are. But it will also then give a higher risk if there are particular posts where there are some specialist skills or only one person. So our data not only provides data, but it's really looking at that people risks across all of our corporate services. We've also got dashboards for schools as well. So we're looking across the whole organisation. Those dashboards have been welcomed by services, and it's also been instrumental this year in our workforce planning. It's given some real good data insights to help services really plan their workforce and identify those risks and put mitigations in for the future. As part of that, there's also an oversight for CLT and SLT with just some really high level themes, so they're able to have a good strategic visibility of some of that key workforce data. Again, that covers our corporate services and schools. These have been introduced within the last couple of months. They'll be complemented moving forward with some quarterly reporting to CLT that will highlight some of those key themes and areas of action that we need to look at. Our strategic workforce planning, we're still very advanced in comparison to other local authorities in our approach to strategic workforce planning. And this year, as well as the dashboards and having that greater insight, it was also aligned to the 5-year FRM. So all services had their 5-year FRM, which gave an additional piece of information for them to forecast where their services needed to be in 5 years and what the implications were for the workforce around that. So the planning was extended beyond just that initial 1-year forecast. Our staff survey, again this year, it's been much more robust. We've had better communications, and again we've been using our data insights better to kind of analyse some of that data, which has helped us to identify some actions and priorities. We've used it you said, we did approach. There's been a number of communications that have gone out to staff. So we're just hoping that that is going to, well, it will really increase, I think, the completion rate. Even though it was the highest this year, there were still some areas, some services that were quite low, probably more the frontline areas. So there's a piece of work around how we ensure we engage with that section of the workforce more robustly. But I think as staff see that actually they are listening and things are happening as a result of people raising and saying things and providing that feedback, that hopefully that momentum will grow even further. So again, essential for retention, engagement, and also productivity. Another area is Audit Wales undertook an audit in February and March. It was a thematic audit that they're undertaking against all 22 authorities. We've had the informal feedback in the last couple of weeks to that and the draft report, and it's very positive. It's highlighted that we've got a good understanding of the challenges that we face, and we've got plans and actions in place to address those challenges. So we're going through the process now of responding to that audit, and of course we'll put actions in place to respond to those recommendations. We understand that that report will hopefully come to committee next month, so you'll be able to see that. So in terms of the next steps, while significant progress has been made and we've been able to move forward and think much more strategically around our recruitment and retention, there are still challenges, and these are really acute in some areas. There's some examples there. That's not an exhaustive list. There are some other areas. So we'll continue to work with services on those hard to fill areas. We need to review our people strategy. Our people strategy is due to expire this summer. And again, this time round, we've got some really good data insights in order to help us really prioritise what some of those actions should be. So we'll be drawing on that data to identify those priorities and the expected outcomes. The last people strategy was for 3 years. We'll be doing it for 2 years this time around, so that it aligns then in readiness with the review of the corporate plan to ensure that the people strategy aligns to those objectives that we identify in that. Our apprenticeships, as I've mentioned, and graduate opportunities, we're continuing to grow. But what we want to do is try and align those to our strategic priorities, again, using those data insights to ensure that we're targeting and investing in those areas that really need that support, just to ensure that we get the best value really from that investment that we're putting in place. We're going to be exploring undergraduate and wider work experience opportunities. We've got a bit of a new team in the OD team, and we've got some great officers there with some really good experience, and they're already drawing on some of their networks to see how we can link in with local universities. Some universities are introducing a compulsory work placement as part of their courses. So we're looking at how we can tap into that and align those, again, in particular to perhaps some of those hard to fill areas, so that we can try and give some work experience opportunities just to support that type pipeline of talent into the council. Implement strategic workforce planning framework across schools. So we've got a very comprehensive framework process that we have against our corporate services, and we'll have to tweak it slightly, but we're going to be introducing that across our schools as well. And we've just appointed an officer within our team that's going to be looking specifically at schools and workforce planning, and working very closely with the education service around that. Further enhance the promotion of the council as an employer of choice. And we've done quite a bit of this over recent years, but we want to review the marketing of the council, engage with younger people. We've appointed some apprenticeship champions recently. I think they can help us with some of that, just so that we can really, one of our biggest challenges is the age demographic of our workforce, although it is reducing a little bit, and also of our population. So we're going to be using our apprenticeship champions to really help us with that, to ensure that we provide some clear information on career pathways and using some interactive tools. Working within local authority is a great opportunity. There's not many organisations where you get the breadth of opportunity and roles to have a really rich career. So we need to be promoting that better, particularly to our younger members of our community. And continue to review people risks and support services and schools with plans. So again, that workforce planning, we've got that framework. It's how now we identify from that what our key priorities are to overcome any particular areas of risk that we've got. Engagement is key, again, for retention. So we need to understand what some of those challenges are. I've already mentioned increasing the response rate in frontline services. Staff survey, we do that for corporate services. We don't in schools. We'll be implementing that this year. In the summer this year, we'll also be undertaking a retention survey, which will inform workforce planning. And it's a survey just to understand from staff what their intentions are, whether people are looking to retire now or in the next 5 years. It just gives us a bit of an insight as to, again, where our high risk areas are, so that we can put steps in place to mitigate against any risks, and continue to put initiatives in place in response to the staff survey. And final areas then are around our development opportunities. We've got a really comprehensive suite of learning and development opportunities. What we need to do is really align those a bit more to the strategic priorities and needs, and evaluating some of those learning and development opportunities as well. Ensuring each service has a training needs analysis as part of their workforce planning. That again will help us to identify what those plans and priorities need to be in terms of our learning and development, again, so that we get the best value we can out of our investment. We're also looking to introduce a leadership competency framework for our senior managers and leaders. And this will be complemented by a development programme for senior managers across the organisation that will be aligned to that, the leadership competency, and in particular what our needs are as an authority. So not just the theory of leadership, but actually what are our key priorities as an organisation, and what key skills do we need our senior managers and leaders to have in order to enable us to achieve our objectives. So that's a quick whistle-stop tour, but happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Gemma. Thank you very much, Gemma. That was really comprehensive, and yeah, really appreciate that run through. I've got a couple of questions myself, but I'm going to open the floor first to Gareth.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks for that, Gemma. Making a lot of progress on a lot of fronts there. A couple of comments and maybe possible additions. One is, I think, is scope for more secondments into the council. We've had first-hand experience of presentations from a secondee, which I think brought new perspectives. And if that could be widened, and I think it will. We all know about the remoteness of powers, but I think there's things that can be done from working from home, and you don't have to attend the office every day. So that's one point. Another point is about, and it picks up from a report we had from Audit Wales this morning, and particularly you highlighted hard to fill jobs, is maximising the scope for sharing specialist posts with other local authorities. And that was, in fact, a recommendation of Wales Audit with regard to capital projects, but maybe that could be broadened where you've got such posts. And the third point, in your workforce plan, looking over 5 years, we've got, I think, the impact of AI on jobs. I think it could be quite far-reaching, and some jobs it'll enhance, other ones it could almost do away with part or in whole. So I think there's a dimension here as part of that workforce planning is to identify such jobs that will be affected by AI, and then the scope for retraining those people affected.
Thanks, Gareth. Gemma, can you just hold fire and I'll bring Pete in, and then if you could maybe sort of round up in answer to questions at the end, I'll bring all the questions in first. Pete, Councillor
Yeah,
Pete.
thank you, Chair. Yeah, and thanks, Gemma, for the presentation. It was just a quick comment around the definition of the risk, which is obviously focuses on recruitment and retention. Makes very clear the point, if we don't get that right, we can't deliver the services needed by the local population. I just wonder though, in listening to the presentation, Gemma, is whether there's a bit missing within that retain bit that either needs to be drawn out or needs to be added, because I guess there's one thing about recruiting someone, there's one thing about retaining them, but we obviously need to make sure that they're motivated and kept healthy enough to deliver the service to the high level that our residents expect. I did hear your bits around things like wellbeing initiatives and things like that, but just wanted to hear your comments around whether you think we have got enough in there to once we've got the people, make sure they're motivated enough to do the job.
Thanks, Pete. John, did I see your hand up?
Yes, if I may, Chair. I'd like to ask a fairly specific question. You talked about residual pockets of that still require attention. One that particularly concerned me, and I should have raised it earlier. If we look at the corporate tracker on the previous item, page 292, we haven't had any real progress on the food standards items there from a report dated back in December 23. And, there seems to be an area of significant risk. Are we concentrating at all on that problem?
Thank you, John. Gemma, if you could look to the answers for the questions, please.
Yes, no problem. In relation to the AI, yes, absolutely. I think as part of the 5-year FRM planning, services have been looking about how digital solutions can help efficiencies and how that impacts both numbers of staff, but also about retraining staff. So it's around the skills will change and how we ensure that we're delivering training and the skills so that they can deliver those roles in a slightly different way. Also, new roles will be created. So as other roles where we've got the digital advancements may not be needed, it creates then opportunities for us to do some of that more value-added work as well. So sometimes that creates other roles. So absolutely, that is on our agenda and a significant part of the strategic workforce planning process. In relation to the definition of risk and the motivation and performance, I think absolutely might not be highlighted in the definition, but certainly our people strategy looks at the full employee cycle from the moment somebody's recruited, even up until when they leave, because even when they leave, we want them to leave with a good impression of Powys so that they'll either promote us to others or come back to us when other opportunities present themselves. So absolutely, that people strategy does cover the whole spectrum of the life cycle of somebody first making an application or thinking about joining us to the point that they leave. And I think it's a good point, because that motivation is and the retention and people feeling valued, which we measure all of that in our staff survey, ultimately helps with productivity as well. It's not just about keeping people, but they feel more motivated and will be more efficient and more productive in work as well. So absolutely. In relation to the food standards, there are a number of areas such as that, and we're working with services. Don't have the specific detail around those specific posts, but I'll certainly take that away. But I know that we that the issues in that area have been raised, and we have been in discussions with the service about that.
Thank you, Gemma.
Thanks, Gemma. Thank you very much. I've got a final question in this area, which if Emma's still on the call, she might want to contribute. It was kind of picking up a theme that Gareth was starting to develop. Really, it's and this is, with all due respect to the existing team, this isn't a criticism at all. It's really just about balancing the risk and the recruiting from within, and if cultivating your own talent and employing local people, especially in the leadership team. I'm really thinking about senior positions. That's why I invited Emma to consider it. It's really balancing the risk of promoting from within and bringing in new perspectives. I think Councillor Pete or Gareth used that new perspectives word, and it was really just Emma's thoughts, and how bringing in new ideas, bringing in constructive challenge, bringing in new blood. As how do you balance? And if you do promote from within for your very senior posts, where do you get the constructive challenge and the new blood and the new thoughts from? Because it is quite a tricky one to balance.
Yeah, I'll come in there, Chair. I completely agree with balance. It's really important. And to give the committee assurance, at every senior level post, we actually go out to the external market. So every role is opened up for the opportunity to bring in new blood, and for those where we've grown the talent internally, for them to compete in that that national field, and the senior roles are predominantly appointed as well through the Employment and Appeals Committee, or if at director level, it's actually full council. Sorry, I say director level. I think it's over a certain salary figure point rather than, and that tends to be at director level and above. So where we have made the internal appointments, where committee have chosen to do so, people have successfully competed and been awarded the roles internally. I'm very strong around mentoring and coaching. And each of our senior leaders, certainly at the corporate leadership team, all have an external mentor and or coach. And we're reaching out and doing a lot more work with other local authorities in terms of critical friends. If I give an example, we are actually a critical friend at the moment from Powys to Torfaen and Blaenau Gwent. And we've got a reciprocal arrangement with them where they are actually working with us in terms of our education improvement, so that we're looking externally. Or Richard, our Director of Education, has brought in a lot of secondments, not only within education, but also into working with schools to bring in different perspectives from other local authorities. And what we're trying to do is identify those that are performing at their best, so that we can look to equalise, and if not, improve even further beyond that. So I think the main thing is that horizon scanning, and we've got to keep looking outwards, not only to local authorities, but actually private sector, and not only within Wales, but the UK and globally.
Thank you, Emma. Thanks for that assurance.
You're welcome.
It's really, really helpful to know. Thank you very much. I'll move us on, colleagues, but I'll need to pause again to thank Emma for Gemma for such a comprehensive response to our inquiries for a deeper dive into the recruitment and retention risks. So thank you very much, Gemma. I'll move us on to item 15, and that's an update on our working groups. So I think we have two, one from me on internal audit and one from Gareth on capital. On internal audit, working group, we had a meeting on Wednesday. First meeting for a while, a really, really helpful meeting. We looked at the action tracker, which we've seen a version of earlier in this meeting. And we also examined in some detail the follow-up on the school's mandatory training audit, and we also followed up in some detail on the overtime follow-up audit. And I'm happy to take any questions if colleagues wish to ask. And with thanks to Ian Halstead and Mary for supporting that meeting as well. No questions. Gareth, if you just do a wee brief update on Gareth Capital.
Yes, the committee made comments on the council's public consultation exercise on the rural estate. These were taken on board positively, and subsequently we were invited to comment on some consultancy work that was commissioned by the council on the potential future role of the council's rural estate. Those comments were forwarded to the leader, and the leader has asked that these get incorporated in a paper through the democratic process now, and I think it's going to committee E. I can't remember the acronym of the committee.
ERC.
Yeah, that's the one, and so it's very pleasing to hear that our comments are being heard and progressed.
Thank you very much, Gareth, and thanks for supporting that work. It feels like it is making a really good contribution to the work of the council. If there are any questions for Gareth? No. I'll move us on to the work programme, which is agenda item 16. And if anyone's got any questions or points of clarification, and if they have, I'll probably look to carry on for support. Any questions or comments on the summary work programme? No. I'll move us on to item 17, which is the strategic risk register. And I will bring in Councillor David and Mary for this item. If you could very briefly introduce the paper on the basis that colleagues will have read it, and then we'll take some questions. Thanks very much, both.
Thank you, Chair. Just I know there's some concern about the lateness of this report, so just very briefly to apologise for that, and just to explain that it went to informal cabinet on the 3rd of March, and it missed the 5-day publication deadline for your last Governance and Audit Committee, and consequently we had the pre-election period, which delayed it further. So apologies for the lateness of the report. Just a very, very brief introduction to the non-confidential risk elements of the reports. At the end of quarter 3, there were 11 non-confidential risks, and Appendix B gives full details of those risks, including the mitigating actions. And during the quarter and its review window, no risks have changed their probability or their impact rating. Bets and Mario here who can assist in any questions that members may have. Chair.
Thanks very much. And apologies, Bets. I didn't see you there at first. Apologies from me. Questions? Any questions for Bets and Mary from members? Councillor Pete.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, fingers are a bit sticky going across the keyboard. Apologies. It was just one around paragraph 3.4 of the report. That's sort of showing us that there are 7 risks that are over and beyond our risk tolerance boundary, and I think 4, 5, 6 of them have all got a major or severe impact. I understand what Councillor David was just saying about the delays in this report coming to us and being 3 months old. So I just wondered if there were any updates on those risks, if there's any reason why they've not been addressed, and are there any barriers stopping this work being done to address these severe and major risks? Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Bets, Mary?
Shall I come in? Sorry, can get off mute then. I'll come in first, and then Bets can come in with any detail. So we've at the last committee meeting, I think we had the risk appetite, and that's just gone through cabinet and been approved this last week. Those are high scoring risks, and by their very nature, the strategic risks that we have are high scoring. I think in terms of the appetite and the tolerance and where the risks are, I think that's work that needs to be ongoing then, in terms of how far do we tolerate outside of the risk appetite, really, and that work will follow on from having the functionality within the system, I think, to see that more and have to respond to that. So every time somebody reviews a risk now, they'll need to consider the risk appetite, or if they add a new risk on, they'll need to consider the risk appetite and whether it sits within it. Bets will have more detail, but it's feasible, clearly, that risks can sit outside of that appetite, and that we're working towards getting it within the appetite, really. But by their very nature, it's more important that we understand the risk, and then that we look at those mitigating actions. So there is something there, I think, around making sure that the mitigating actions are reducing or having an impact on the score of the risks as well. But some things will change that are beyond our control, and that's the whole point of having the risk management framework in place, really. I don't know, Bets, if you want to add a bit more to that.
Just 2 minor points, actually, Mary, because I think you've answered it. I've nothing major to add to what you've already said, but just to answer that, actually looking at the Q4 report, no, the risks still remain at those scores. And just to say, as Mary's explained, it's not to say that just because they sit in that quadrant, they're out of our tolerance. We'd have to look at each risk individually to figure out if they are within the risk appetite or not. It's just we highlight the ones that are sitting in that top right-hand quadrant. And also just finally to say, as well as introducing the functionality into JCAT on the risk appetite, we've also introduced the functionality of target setting. So that will add further assurance if a risk is out of its what the cabinet has agreed for its risk appetite. There is ambition to get it down to a certain target as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much, Bets. Thanks, Pete, for your question. So I'm trying to interpret the answer. So it's about, put simply, we've got some really high risk scores, and we need to examine the tolerance, the risk tolerance, as well as the raw score. And that's kept under constant review. Is that a fair? Pete, I'll bring you in as well because
Yeah, thanks.
you initiated the question.
Yeah, no, I was sort of struggling as well to understand the explanation without being rude. But I mean, my reading of that paragraph there, 3.4, and if I just focus on one, we've got one where it's almost certain to happen, and it's going to have a major impact on us. Now, I accept when it's originally rated, it can be rated as that. It can be above the risk tolerance boundary, but we must have a plan in place to bring that below the risk tolerance boundary. And I would have thought that would be one that we ought to be focusing on almost immediately because of the severity of it. So we're sort of 3 months on from the report, and I guess we've still not addressed that one. And I was trying to therefore understand why aren't we addressing it? You know, is it resources, is it staffing, or whatever? Because by implication, if that happens, we've got a problem.
Certainly, the risks are reviewed on a regular basis. It is, you know, it does take place between these reports. These reports are just a snapshot in time. And yes, on that one, there will be mitigating actions in place. I was trying to get to the appendix that shows us which risk that is to.
No, thanks, Mary. Sorry, I don't mean to be rude jumping in there. I get that. But I guess if we've got mitigating actions, then it shouldn't be being assessed at that level.
Can I jump in there, Mary?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, the appendix B and C don't give the detail of which one that would be, because it doesn't give us the breakdown of the probability and the impact, but of course we can see the scores. So for example, the nature emergency one is currently at a score of 20, and the climate one is also quite a high score. So I think that's where Mary already kind of alluded to, tried to explain in her previous comment, is we've got some very high scoring risks, and we have got the ambition and we have got controls in place to try and bring them down. But when we've got some very high strategic risks like the nature emergency and the climate emergency, it's very, very hard for that score to be coming down, even though it's outside of our appetite.
So, Councillor David, I'm going to bring you in. So, it's just so there are some risks that we just have to tolerate.
Can I just say very briefly, if we're talking about the climate emergency and the nature emergency, they're going to be with us for quite some time because of the very nature of the activity that's involved around them. And the net zero route map was actually taken to Cabinet and approved by Cabinet last week. Now, what that does identify is the fact that whereas we did have a target of 2030 for delivery as far as the authority is concerned, that's now going to be extended to 2035, but 40% of it will be achieved by 2030. But it's also involving significant investment. I think it's £440 million of capital investment required, which will have to come from external sources. So when you actually look at the complications within these risks, I think it's fair to say that this is going to be with us for some time yet. But there's certainly work happening with regard to the risks and mitigating them to some extent.
Thank you very much, Councillor David. Looking at the clock, and we've already got a couple of substantive items to go, and we're very close to time. I am going to draw a line under the strategic risk register item, albeit it feels to me as though there's a bigger conversation to be had here. Councillor Pete, Betts, Mary, Councillor David, but it's a complex area. The local authority has done a hell of a lot of work, Betts, over the past year or so with the appetite and tolerance examination and improving JCAD. So Thank you very much for the paper. My sense is we probably need an opportunity to kind of unpack a wee bit more the conundrum that Councillor Peat has been identifying and teasing out. And it's kind of, for me, it's what do we do and how do we examine, how do we treat these big sort of almost geopolitical universal risks that, albeit we will endeavour to do the best we can for Powys and to address the risks as best we possibly can for Powys. Realistically, the levers which we have to do that may be fairly limited. So perhaps there's an opportunity for a workshop or a different kind of conversation about that, but I don't think we can have that conversation today. But in the meantime, thank you very much. And Pete, last word.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Lynn. Sorry. Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I'd welcome that opportunity. And it may be around the fact that we may not be, and again, I don't mean this rudely, we may not be scoring it correctly in the first place because, as you say, there's lots of geopolitical things there that no matter what we do, we can't influence. But yeah, I would welcome that workshop. So thank you for that suggestion, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm going to move us on, and I'm going to apologise to colleagues, understand if people need to leave and pray in aid, perhaps another 15 minutes from those who are able. Exempt item, item 18, the monitoring officer has determined that items 19 and 20 are category 7 of access to information and can be taken in confidential session. That needs, Mary, Carrie Ann, that needs to be moved. Can someone
yes,
move
please,
that?
Chair. Propose a second, a show of hands.
So John's proposing someone to second, please. Okay, I'll second that. I'll say, or Gareth, right, Gareth, John to propose, Gareth to second. Show of hands from members. Councillor Peat, we need to be quorate to do this. Pete.
Sorry, I've got very sticky fingers, Chair. Sorry,
Sticky
or keys.
fingers.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Carrie Ann, right, okay, thank you.
I'll move us across now.
Right, okay, thank you very much.